concludes today's panel. Now please welcome author of his memoir, I'm Not Broken, from San Diego, California, Jesse Leon.
Buenos dias. Good morning. I want to thank Hispanics in Philanthropy for inviting me to be here today. I want to thank all of you for allowing me to share my story. But most importantly, I want to thank my mom, mis abuelitas, and all of my ancestors whose indigenous blood runs through my veins, and their struggles allowed me to be here today. You see, the day before I was to leave for Harvard, I was picking up my mom from work when the secretary of the elementary school walked in. She explained to me how Ama had finally accepted that I would be leaving. Ama was sitting in the school cafeteria during her lunch break between the breakfast and lunch shifts when the secretary walked in, and Ama was wearing her hairnet, her work apron over her usual flower pattern blouse. She was a lunch lady. She sat on a plastic school lunch bench in the middle of the cold, drab concrete room, and she was crying, all alone, with her head between her hands. Shocked, the secretary asked my mom, Espi, why are you crying? Are you okay? Es que mi hijo, primero lo perdí a las drogas, luego se me fue para Berkeley, y ahora se me va a una escuela en Boston que se llama Harvard. ¿Por qué no se regresa aquí a estudiar para estar cerca de la familia? Aquí está la mejor universidad en San Diego. Ama pleaded in Spanish, why didn't I come home to be close to the family and go to school here? Because San Diego has the best university. The secretary hugged Ama, and while she sobbed, she asked her, what school did you say your son is going to? Se llama Harvard, allá en Boston. Solo Dios sabe dónde queda Boston. Me dicen que está muy lejos, hasta allá, cerca de Nueva York. Usted se imagina Nueva York. Hace mucho frío, se me puede enfermar. The secretary held her by the shoulders, looked at her tear-covered face and directly into her eyes and said, are you kidding? It's Harvard. The secretary went directly to the teacher's lounge and wrote on the board, please congratulate Espi. Her son just got accepted to Harvard. And so everyone did. Teacher after teacher, and even the principal came to congratulate Ama that day. Her tears of sadness turned into tears of joy because she looked up to these teachers, and she finally began to understand that Harvard was one of the most prestigious schools in the world, and her son, who'd shed sacrifice so much for, was going to be attending Harvard University. I invite you all to please take a minute and think about where you were at 11 years old. What were you doing? Think about your summers between 6th and 7th grade. What did you do for fun? See, this is me at 11 years old. Loving, caring, nerdy kid, loved my mom. What were your hopes and dreams? Mine, when I found out Linda Carter was Mexican, I would watch Wonder Woman obsessively. I'd tie my shirt in a knot, and I'd spin around in circles in the living room. And I'd get dizzy, and my mom in the kitchen would laugh with me. But there was always this underlying tone of, don't ever let your dad catch you doing that. I would sit on the living room floor reading National Geographic magazines from the library. I'd have a giant dictionary, and then I would get encyclopedias from the library to match whatever was in the National Geographic magazine. And I would get lost in these worlds of, I don't know, the pyramids in Mexico, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Spain, the underground cities of Turkey, hoping that one day maybe I could travel to these places, because those of us in the barrio never talked about those vacations. My life consisted of Tijuana, San Diego, and LA. And so, at 11 years old, one hot summer day, we were having a water bucket fight, or con la manguera, wetting each other in the apartments. And I got sent to a gift shop to buy water balloons. And this little cute kid asked the shopkeeper, "Excuse me, do you have any water balloons?" The shopkeeper says, "Yes, I'll be with you in a minute. They're in the back storage room. They're in a box. Feel free to go look for them. I'll be with you in a minute. Let me tend to these customers." So I'm going to this back storage room and I'm looking for balloons, but all these boxes are sealed, and my mama raised me right. I'm not going to open up anything without permission, so I turn around to ask the shopkeeper if it was okay, trying to walk out of the room, and he's standing in the doorway. I get sexually abused. I get beaten up. He threatens me that if I don't come back, he'll find out where I live and he'll kill me and my family in this local little gift shop in the community. A month later, he started inviting other men into the store to have sex with this little 11-year-old boy. And by the time I was 14 years old, when the authorities got involved, I hated who and what I was, and I hated everything about me. And there were over 1,000 sex partners by the time I was 14. And I am a survivor of sex trafficking. So between 11 and 12 years old, I blame myself. I blame this little kid. I said, maybe if my mom didn't love me, maybe if I wasn't turning around like Wonder Woman, maybe if I was as masculine like my older brother who's covered in tattoos, maybe this wouldn't have happened to me. It's my fault. Like too many of us oftentimes feel. You see, almost 50% of trafficked children in the US are boys, with the average age of entry being 11 to 13 years old. And those of us that are LGBTQ+ are 7 times more likely to experience acts of sexual violence than our heterosexual and cisgender peers. So I changed. At 12 years old, I shaved my head, I bought hairnets, I went shoplifting for some Dickies, size 36. I can't wear those today, I wish I could. Bought my little Kmart corduroy slippers we call roach stompers. And I became a wannabe cholo. And I did the best I could to hide this little kid, never to be seen again. And so I blame my mom for loving me, and I blame my mom for caring for me. And at 16, I ran away from San Diego and I started turning tricks. I became a sexually exploited child in the sex trafficking industry, in the commercial sex trafficking industry of LA, walking Santa Monica Boulevard and Hollywood Boulevard. And at 18 years old, I weighed 135 pounds, sleeping in Balboa Park, hopping in and out of random men's cars to support my drug habit, because see, my perpetrators were drugging me. So at 14, I was already a drug addict. And when the authorities got involved and he disappeared, and I was assigned to a therapist by the state for victims of crimes, I turned to the streets to support my drug habit. So what did you need at 11 years old? I needed multilingual, gender-affirming, culturally humble, trauma-informed care. At 14, I needed access to multilingual, gender-affirming, trauma-informed care. That's culturally humble or culturally competent, whichever you want to use. So at 18, I'm 135 pounds, right? Sleeping under a bush in Balboa Park. And the ex-girlfriend that I had took me to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting. I got clean at 18, and I just celebrated 30 years clean and sober. But see, there were people that believed in me. I didn't do this on my own. People like Fred Sotelo, who I met when I was in 11th grade, when I was a little wannabe cholo, and this really cute, handsome San Diego State student walks in and asks me, hey, how's this partnership with your mentor? To see, he used to do a mentorship program to get Latino students to go to San Diego State. He believed in me. And so, it took me 4 years to get my associate's degree. It's not a race. And I wanted to stop there, but there were so many EOPS counselors that said, why don't you think bigger and leave San Diego? And I'm like, well, I don't know where I want to go. They're like, just apply to 10 schools. We got you. So I got into UC Berkeley on a full ride. I was able to go live in Spain and study abroad programs and visit those places that I only read in National Geographic magazines. I was able to go to take pictures outside the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and I was able to go to those underground cities in Turkey. I came back and I got a full ride to Harvard University Kennedy School of Government. I'm not broken. We're not broken. I am worthy, and I need to remind myself every morning that I am worthy. But see, too often I wanted to give up in my career in philanthropy. How do we treat each other sometimes? Are we kind to each other? But there's people here that I've known throughout my entire career of philanthropy: Eileen Sanchez, Don Chen, Aaron Dorfman, Bambi, Salcedo, Mario. There's a lot of you all that have supported me and encouraged me to not give up, not quit. And maybe when it's not a fit, it just wasn't meant for me to be there, and the universe wanted me doing something else so that I can be living in my truth today. So I welcome you to please join me in a call to action. 1, let's provide sacred spaces for us to talk about these issues, because it's difficult to talk about in our communities, to break stigmas. There's only one Latino curriculum on human trafficking, and it's a Dominican woman out of New York. But she's trying to figure out a way to create the curriculum. So she's asked me to help. So let's break taboos and stigmas. 2, lean in and go outside your comfort zone. 3, commit to following up with each other. Call at least 1 or 2 people that you met here and say, hey, not trying to be transactional here like we often do in philanthropy, but do you need anything from me? How can I help you? That person may need you. And lastly, and with this all closed, maybe I need to hear this, but please look to the person next to you or behind you and say the following. Please, ready? You matter. You're not alone. And I believe in you. Gracias.